Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video, we're going to talk about packing your gear. And I think it's actually one of the most important steps where a lot of people make mistakes, and this is why. I feel like the general idea amongst photographers is that you have to take as much gear as you can to be as prepared as possible. But I tend to disagree. This whole gear hoarding thing, or as I like to call it, becoming a photography turtle, is not as practical as people like to think. And I've been very guilty of it myself. I used to take bags on bags on bags on bags. But when starting out, I actually think it's much better to keep it as easy and as simple as possible. So for about 75% of my work, both for Instagram and my portfolio, I switched to a very simple minimalistic setup. And I actually have multiple variations of it depending on what is needed for that specific day. And in this video, I want to show you guys my setups. I want to show you some of the products that I use frequently and also give you some tips that I think will be very helpful and beneficial for those starting out. But before I get into the gear that I use and the setups that I use, I shortly want to explain why I support this whole movement of going more minimalistic with your photography. I sincerely believe that you only get better at taking photos, and we're talking digital photography now, by actually taking photos, making mistakes and getting to know your camera. And the only way you do that is by shooting it as much as you can. And in order to shoot as much pictures as you can, you have to make sure that the threshold to start shooting is as low as it could be. So when you have this huge camera bag and your camera is in the camera bag, you have to take all these actions before you actually take a picture. And if you're not sure about a certain picture, you're very likely to just leave it in your bag, to not even start taking photos at all. And I've learned this lesson the hard way by putting my bag on and off my bag countless times and in the end just not wanting to take any pictures anymore. So how do you keep it as simple as possible? Well, actually it's very easy, and I would say this is setup 0. It's this thing, just bring your phone. Phones are so good at taking pictures and you may have a little bit less control, but when you're starting off, it's an amazing tool. So if you want to take it to the next step and have a little bit more of creative control and a little bit better quality, then the next step would maybe be a pocket camera. It would actually surprise you how many professional photographers have one of these pocket cameras. They would call it their daily carry. And what makes these things special is that they're really small, but their quality is very, very good. And one of the popular options is this one. It's a Ricoh GR3X. So in this video, I will not explain in full detail why I love this camera so much. However, I did make a reel on my Instagram where I explained why I love this camera so much. So if that sounds interesting to you, be sure to check out my Instagram. What's also interesting to know is that the pictures from my first POV photo walk on this YouTube channel were also taken with this small camera. I think that the biggest advantage of this camera or any similar camera in terms of size is that it doesn't look that professional. And that means that it would not alert people to act differently than normal, which for street photographers, for example, is perfect. But also if you shoot in a more intimate setting or when you're with friends or family, which brings me to my second setup. And it's actually a setup with the same camera. The only difference is that I add some parts to it. So the nice thing about this camera, and a lot of modern cameras have it, is that you can take off these filter thread covers and you can add filters to it. And you can use filters to change the look of your picture. You can use it to take long exposure pictures, for example with an ND filter. But you could also use a filter to take off the digital edge a little bit. I like to use the Tiffen Glimmer Glass or a black Pro Mist filter. So because I add these filters and it has this little system to attach these filters, I need a little bit more space because it will not fit into the pocket of my jacket anymore. But I still want to keep it as simple as possible. And for this I use a old bag that I got with my DJI drone. It's kind of like a fanny pack, but you can put it over your shoulder. And it's actually really nice because it is still quite small. It can fit all my personal belongings, it can fit all the SD cards, and I can even put in this huge battery pack. Another nice thing about using a small bag that perfectly fits your gear is that you can use it almost like a packing cube. So you can put all your gear in it and then use this bag, for example, in a bag that you use for traveling. And what's actually surprising is that most of these fanny pack sized bags or like these middle sized bags, they actually fit your DSLR or mirrorless camera as well, as long as you don't put on your biggest lenses. For the third setup, it's time to talk about straps, and I mean it in a photography way. But you do you. When you're shooting portfolio work and you're taking out the big guns, I would advise you to not put them in a bag at all. Just take one of your lenses and put the camera on a strap. And there are multiple straps. Some are better than others, some are easier than others, but just find out what works for you. For example, you have neck straps, you have shoulder straps, you have full harnesses that go across your body, but you also have very simple wrist straps where it's just connected to your hand, but you don't constantly have to hold it. And when we're talking about straps, when we're talking about gear, and we're talking about making shooting easier, about lowering the threshold, then there is one company that I'm not affiliated with, they're not sponsoring me, but I do think they have made a really great product, and it's Peak Design. And they make these little quick connect cables which allow you to connect them to your neck strap, but also to a wrist strap in a matter of seconds, but also allows you to change them really, really fast. So I think it's an unmissable tool. And while we're talking about Peak Design, I actually also have to talk about this product. It's this very nice connection piece that you can wrap around one of the straps of a bag, whatever bag you have. It can be a camera bag, but it can also be something else. And you can just click in your camera with these small little plates. And it's super functional because you can push it in, you lock it, and it will never fall out. You can do whatever you want and it's totally safe. So these were my tips for running a minimalistic setup and moving light so you never miss a shot again. So let me know in the comments what you use, what is your daily carry, what is your setup, or what would you change in my setup? Please leave a comment and I'm really looking forward to reading all of them. See you next time.